Hey guys, what is going on? So today I'm going to talk about one of the places that is one of my favorite places I've ever flown my drone, but it's now illegal and you definitely cannot fly your drone anymore. That's Belize. So you can fly your drone in Belize under special circumstances. You have to get a permit, which actually isn't the hardest thing in the world anymore. However, some of the places that you're going to want to fly when you go to Belize, you just can't fly anymore. So I emailed the Film Commission of Belize because there's a few shots that I wanted to recreate with a new drone, because when I was last shooting there and I got these shots, I was shooting on a Phantom 2 with a GoPro Hero 3 and the footage is mediocre. Like, I'd love to go back with a bigger drone, more power, better camera, go get some awesome shots of the temples and all the ancient culture that's in Belize, because there's some really cool stuff when you get out into the jungle. So I emailed the Belize Film Commission and they sent me to another person who's in charge of the archaeological sites, so all the Mayan ruins. And then I emailed them and they gave me the steps to film at the Mayan ruins. However, there's completely no drone usage on any archaeological reserve anymore in Belize. And I asked them if there's some way to waive it and they said there's not. So some of these shots that I got of these temples back a few years ago, you just can't get again. You might be able to get special permission, but people like us, unless you're a big film crew and you're gonna bring a lot of money and probably grease some wheels in Belize, you're probably not gonna be flying drones over any archaeological site, which sucks because there's some awesome footage there. When I was there a few years ago and I was flying drones in these areas, there was no issues, none whatsoever. This was back when drones were in their infancy still. People didn't really know what to do with them, and you just could fly anywhere and people were not having that many issues. Obviously there are rules in place for a reason. When you're in the middle of the jungle in Belize and you're flying over some of these cool ruins and there's nothing around, and basically you're getting a completely different perspective on some of these sites. It's a bummer that not allowing things like drones to go out there, even with special permission. I reached out to the Film Commission because I wanted to do things by the books. I didn't just want to go out there and fly, because last time I was out there flying, there was a couple guards with giant guns sitting there on top of the tower, just looking at everyone and what they're doing with cameras and this and that. When I was flying, they just came over my shoulder and were watching. They were super interested, but I'm pretty sure now that's not gonna happen. And even when I was there was another team with like an octocopter. They had a much bigger camera on it and they were coming in when we were leaving and they were getting ready to set up and do some awesome shoots of the temples. I'm sure they got some rad footage. One of the reasons why this is such a bummer is that this footage that I shot in Belize on a GoPro on a Phantom 2 actually sells really well as stock footage. For some reason, people really want footage of temples and it sells well. So not being able to go even through the correct channels and go shoot at these places and get the permits and do that, it's not even a possibility anymore. Really a bummer, because some of that footage sells really well, and stock footage is one of the ways that we make money so that we're able to travel, film, do all the stuff we're gonna do. And these shots that people want, we're not getting access to it because of the drone usage. Now we can go out there with cameras like this camera, other cameras shoot on the ground, but there's a ton of footage of that out there. And drones are something that people really want nowadays. That's one of the most popular themes for stock footage is aerial shots, because up until drones you weren't able to get these perspectives, and there's all these places in the world that now people want shots of to use in their films and their documentaries and their TV shows, whatever it is that they're doing. And we have the ability to go out there, travel to these destinations and shoot it. And even when you're going through the correct channels, it sucks that there's just certain areas that you cannot fly anymore. All right, if you guys are thinking of traveling to Belize with a drone, just know that when you go through the airport, your drone is going to get confiscated unless you have a permit, and you have to get a permit by getting it ahead online or calling in. And I've heard that it's really tough to do that. So what you do is you get to the airport, give yourself a few hours, because what you have to do is go downtown to Belize City, get a permit. It's like $70, so you gotta make sure you've landed when the office is open, and then you gotta go back to the airport, show your permit, and then you're able to take your drone out. The second time I was in Belize, where I just went to Hamburgues with my Mavic, I was able to get through security. I didn't know about this rule, and I was told after the fact, because I met someone who had a Phantom 4 and he wasn't able to get through, and he had major issues getting that in. They just didn't know about Mavics yet, but I'm sure they're learning what a Mavic looks like on a scanner. because they do scan all your bags when you exit. And I know in Nicaragua, my drone got confiscated. They are being aware that, Mavics are a popular drone. So there's a good chance that it'll get taken. So something to keep in mind when you're traveling to places like this, do your research. After my experience in Nicaragua, you don't ever want to get your drone confiscated unless you're risking it and you really think you can just get it through security. I have a buddy that got through in Morocco, pushed it through security, and he was able to get through even though he knew that there's a good chance it was getting confiscated. So if you want to take that risk, go for it. But Belize, it's a place that you could still fly drones if you get the correct permit, but you're not going to be flying over any archaeological sites. So you can go fly out in the Keys or you can fly out in the jungle. But when it comes to archaeological sites, it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, you might be able to risk it, but there are guards everywhere. And I've heard of different places. So like some of the big temples and ruins in Mexico, they actually will watch for drones because people want to fly drones. It's an awesome subject to fly around. But now they're chasing people down and taking your drone and confiscating it, giving you a huge fine. I've heard of some horror stories. Unfortunately, that's one topic that I would do your research before you fly around. Try to go through the correct channels, try to get a permit if you can, but unfortunately, new rules are coming every day. I mean, even here in Southern California, I just read like a month ago, certain areas are starting to get more and more restricted. It's almost impossible to fly in a lot of places here in Southern California, which sucks because, I have a bunch of drones, I want to go fly, and I have to drive out to the desert or specific little tiny place that you can fly model airplanes, and that's like about it. But it is the way things are going. So guys, I hope you are able to pull something from this and use my experience and what I've found to help guide you when you're traveling and trying to go shoot some really cool footage out in the wild. There's always going to be someone you can contact in different countries if you're not aware of what the drone policies are. Obviously do your research and then reach out to like tourism boards, film commissions, and see if there's any issues with flying your drone, because the last thing you want to do is get your drone confiscated, and worst of all, you don't want to get a major fine or go to jail because you didn't know the rules of the country and the place that you're flying in. All right, so that's it. Make sure you subscribe. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think about this topic, about flying in other countries, flying on different places like this. And guys, I mentioned selling stock footage. If you're interested, I do have a course on how to make money selling stock footage. I'll put a link in the description. You can check that out if you are interested in doing the same. Subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.